deeper question of like, how should men handle their feelings and handle their emotions, right? And I think like at the end of the day, that's a conversation that needs to be had that isn't being had. Because my thought process is that, especially if this is someone that you rock with, like, why would you immediately jump to that? Like, I'm not sure if like that's how he's handled previous situations before, or like if he's been around people that has handled situations like that before and he thought that was okay. But even if like I'm beefing with a shorty that like I used to mess with, who's my homie, and we're not seeing eye to eye like that, my next thought isn't to, oh, let me, pull out on her and fire off on her like that. I wouldn't even make that connection, regardless if I was under the influence or not. So like when it comes to like men handling their emotions, like what do you all think are like some of the important factors, with all of us being black men anyway, that like we kind of need to keep top of mind when we're doing that?
Therapy.
Man. Yeah.
I think I don't really not say therapy. I think like the generation we have now, like, and based on previous generations, weren't raised in a manner of like handling them correctly, like the best way possible. I mean, most men, like, and how to like talk about your feelings and like talk through them and like so forth. You kind of like, it wasn't until I got older in my 20s where it was like, okay, yeah, like I can express like my feelings verbally, like to where you understand it, like my spouse understands it, whatever, or like just not, I guess, like losing that thing where I was like, okay, well, I'm just not gonna talk about it, I'll just suck it up type of thing. But I think like therapy, I think that's one thing like we can start with is like go to therapy. Like let's start by going to therapy, like just to kind of work through those like childhood things, those childhood traumas, whatever. And then just I don't know, I think it starts with therapy for me.
Yeah,
that's good.
I agree. Not really much to say. Definitely agree. I definitely want to take those steps too, like just kind of finding different ways. Like with me, well, more so I'll say in high school. With me, man, like when I get in confrontations, like I can blow up quick, but also if it's something that's really bothering me, I internalize a lot. But also because like I'm just, maybe I'm just fortunate enough to like, I can get mad at something and as quickly as I can get mad, I can get over it, like so I never really had to figure out like, oh man, like I don't know how to deal with this. But I've also just kind of just being a creative always has certain things like writing and stuff. That's always been like a good thing for me to like kind of clear my head and kind of like get some stuff that I'm feeling inside and put it somewhere so that way it's just not in me and like now I'm harboring and carrying that with me everywhere I go. I definitely also been practicing meditation a lot too, and just kind of just helping centering myself, grounding myself, and just keeping myself leveled. So just I really feel like it'd be, as men, we just need maybe some type of tools or things that we could use to, if we don't know how to properly manage our emotions, that we can use. And, that's why working out's a good way to get off frustration and stuff like that, because at the end of the day, we men, like sometimes we just like to get a little physical, put our hands on something, you know what I'm saying? Like and that helps. So having proper tools is definitely a big plus.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. It's really good. I think for me, and it kind of plays like hand in hand with you both have been saying, and honestly something that Wakey said earlier about like us just kind of like learning traits as we're young and like that staying with us. I think it's really hard for men in general, but specifically black men, to be vulnerable, because like it's really hard to trust individuals on like an intimate level.
Absolutely.
Like and I mean like that could be like even for me, like I can count on my like hand like the amount of people that like I can like fully trust. And I'm glad to say that like 3 of them are on this call right now. But I think along with vulnerability only happens when you have like a core community around you, to not only like pour into you and assist you, but it also holds you accountable.
Right.
Like I know like if that was us in that car and I ever did something like that, y'all would probably knock me out before like
for
I
sure,
could even like do anything.
Right.
Like Yeah, y'all would put straight hands on me, and y'all would have every right.
And I might have to turn you in, dog.
Right, or you can go to jail that night. Like you can go to jail that night.
You did what? Boop 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 boop.
Right.
And he right here. Come
Right,
get
he
him.
right here.
But
He right here.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that like I think a lot of times Black men are like, especially depending on like the dynamic of our household, and that's a whole nother conversation that we don't need to go in right now. But it's just like a whole lot of like, all right, you the only man in the house. All right, cool. You got to grow up fast. You got to do this, do that. Protect your sisters. Like aggression and violence and anger is like the only responses that get results. Like being sensitive and like, you know, sharing your emotions, that won't get you the respect that you want, or that won't make things happen in the time span that you need them to happen. And you don't have the luxury of time because you need to make things happen. Like I think all of those things kind of compile into like the moments where it's like, oh, kind of like you said, Kaz, like it's either like you have the ability to get over things quickly because you know, oh, I don't have the time to ponder on it. Facts. And like the tough thing about therapy is that like it makes you sit in it. Like you're literally like, oh, okay, like for this 45 to an hour that I have once a week, I can't just run or I can't deflect. I got to really sit, and when I'm feeling it, like deal with it if I want to make progress. And I think a lot of Black men aren't comfortable with the aspect of like, okay, let me actually do that, because they don't really trust the people around them. Right. Or, you know, even if that trust is there, you know, they still have to take the leap to be like, oh, okay, let me do this. And then their community still has to be able to respond in a way that encourages that to happen a lot of the times. So that would be my thing, in addition to like therapy and, you know, what you were saying, Kaz, just about like the outlets, making sure that you're surrounding yourself with a community that you can trust yourself to be vulnerable with and to hold you accountable.
Yeah, like I think like with those three things, like with therapy, tools, and like community, like I feel like one doesn't work without the other, in the sense that like at a point, like I remember myself even using like some of the tools of like, okay, working out or like whatever as like a mask to like cover up that like the things that I didn't want to deal with necessarily. So it's like, you know, and like you said with Gerard, but like having the community that you trust and like being able to talk through things with your community, or like them like nurture, like they're just naturally nurturing into you and like speaking into you, and building that comfortability. So I think it's just like out of those three things, they all like work together to like push you forward.
Yeah, for sure.
Wakey, anything?
Copy.
Like that.
Wakey don't have emotions.
Real quick, I started Stutz. I haven't finished. I get too deep, but I started Stutz, and that's what made me think about like tools and stuff, because it's kind of similar to that. Again, call back to when he was talking about with Jonah Hill recording a day's worth of his therapy session and stuff like that, and it's still on Netflix. You know, it's been in the back of my head. Like I know Fabrice suggested to watch this, that is really good. So I was sitting with it today for a little bit when I was like working on some goals and stuff, just to kind of have some in the background. But I didn't get a chance to finish. But I definitely intrigued. So
cool. Yeah, I may have to circle back to that. I seen that pop up on my feed, and I heard somebody talk about it in like an interview and said that it was pretty good too. So I may have to, you know, sit on that for a little bit.
It's pretty good, and it's practical.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what sessions you guys have been to in terms of therapy and your progression with all of that. I don't know. Personally, for me, it's always been kind of them asking you to I've always been asked to speculate on myself, and like certain questions that have kind of been like a guide to get me there. But I always had to come up with my own method on how to handle it once I got there. Like they would provide tools, but it was more so like you have to come up with your own particular method on how you go do this right now. I want to say, listening, like after watching that, and I picked up the book too because I was really curious about it. Like he's trying to instill practical, like actual methods on how to deal with certain situations in the moment, as the moment is happening. And I've been trying like lately to try and see if I can put some of them into practice. I can say that the pain one the pain, that one tool where he talks about how to deal with pain. That one is pretty cool. Just because it's not necessarily physical pain. It's more so like any like just irritable stuff, like
Emotional
anything
pain.
emotional pain, like mental pain, just the pain of dread, just things of that nature. Like, oh, I just don't feel like doing this right now. Like that kind of pain.
Mm-hmm.
Like
that's a hard one for me. I feel that. I'm excited to get to that point now.
Yeah, like that particular tool is pretty cool because like in the moment it teaches you like, yo, like this particular thing's got to get done regardless.
Mm-hmm.
And you sitting here and dreading it is going to be one thing, but if you get to a point where you anticipate the dread, deal with the dread, and then push through it, there's little to nothing that'll bother you going forward when you have to deal with this again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
because you literally put yourself in the headspace of what is the worst possible thing that could happen. Okay, now that you're thinking that that's the worst possible thing that can happen, what would you do in that situation if that did happen? What would be the steps for that? Kind of like game planning for the worst possible situation.
Yeah.
But then telling yourself like, yo, I have a plan for that particular situation. And then when you deal with it and it doesn't end up that way, it's something light. It's just kind of like, oh, all right. Like I guess it was just all. It's pretty much just like helping you to choose alternative thought patterns.
That's good.
And it's cool. Like you'd have to get into it yourself, but I highly recommend it. It's pretty cool. Like I'm still like in the middle of the book of like the audio book and stuff. And there's like, I think he talks about 4 tools in general, but right now I'm still trying to learn the pain one. So,
okay, that's interesting. That almost sounds like an aspect of cognitive behavior therapy.
Yeah,
a little bit. Okay, that's pretty good, man. So yeah, man. Hey, if you're a brother out there, or a woman either, but just kind of specifically talking to our brothers right now, if you're in a space, man, where like you got a lot going on and you need someone to tap into, start looking around your community, seeing if it's people there that you can trust, that you can be vulnerable with, that can hold you accountable, different outlets that you can look into, whether that's therapy, and different methods of that. Because I mean, at the end of the day, like your emotions are valuable, right? Like what you think, what you feel, that's valuable. You don't have to keep that locked in, because once you do, it spills out in ways that you don't necessarily want it to or intend for it to. So hey man, like tap into the community around you. And even if you don't have community, or if you think you don't have community, hit us up in the comments below. Like, chop it up with us. We don't have all the answers, but we're always open to lend a listening ear, right? At the end of the day, sometimes the best thing that anyone can do is just listen and not provide any advice or any, answers, because we don't have the answers, but we're all able to listen and emphasize. So
got that Subjumo for the new year. Sick.
I had that.
You got it?
She laced me up before we got
I ain't had nothing. He brought it up and I hit him like, yo, where mine? And he like, nah, mom just froze some for me. I heard you.
Real quick, bro. Just explain that to our listeners that may not know what you're talking about, bro.
Listen, it is the greatest soup ever created. It is. I think it's pumpkin. I want to say it's pumpkin. It's some kind of squash.
Yeah,
it's some kind of squash, and like it's like stewed with like a whole bunch of like different vegetables and protein and stuff in it. It just depends on who make it.
Yeah,
my mom's made she made it with like stewed beef, and like this year, like she always picks a vegetable family to put in it, like because she always she like flexing like that. So she was like, it's gonna be all root vegetables in it.
So, like,
so she had like yuca in it, sweet potato, regular potato. What's the one that start with an M? That root vegetable.
Sounds good to me.
Carrots in that sucker, like
that's amazing.